Writing comments an underestimated skill. Good comments help developers understand what a particular piece of code does and why it is necessary. However, too many comments can also clutter code, making it difficult to read and understand. So, how do we strike a balance between having enough comments and not having too many? This question will be answered in this video. Let's dive in. Minimize the use of comments to essential cases. The first rule of commenting is to only use comments when necessary. If your code is self-explanatory, there may be no need for comments. For example, consider this function, which only allows a user to access the dashboard if they are signed in. This code is simple and easy to understand. It doesn't need any comments to explain what the code does. Use comments to clarify complex code. Comments are useful when dealing with complex code. If your code is difficult to understand, comments can help clarify what is happening. For example, the comments here explains the purpose of the function and how it achieves its goal by using the Euclidean algorithm. The code involves several computations and a recursive call, making it more complex to understand without the comment's explanation. The comment helps to clarify the code's functionality and makes it easier to understand the code's logic. Make your comments clear and concise. When you do need to use comments, make sure they are clear and concise. The purpose of a comment is to explain the code in a way that is easy to understand. For example, in this factorial function, the comment explains the purpose of the function and how it works, making it easy to understand the code's functionality, especially for other developers who might work on the code in the future. Update comments when you update code. It's fairly typical for developers to forget to update the comments after modifying the code. So, when you update your code, make sure you update your comments as well. If your comments are out of date, they can be more confusing than helpful. For example, consider this function returns the largest number in an array. Let's say we later update the function to handle negative numbers by returning the largest absolute value instead of the largest number. If we don't update the comment to reflect this change, it will be misleading and incorrect. Another developer who reads the comment and relies solely on it might assume that the function returns the largest number, not the largest absolute value. Therefore, it's important to update comments whenever we make changes to the code to ensure that they remain accurate and helpful. Avoid redundant comments. Redundant comments are comments that do not provide any new information. For example, in this code, the comments are redundant because they simply restate what the code already clearly expresses. The variable declaration and the loop are self-explanatory, which is why these comments are not necessary. Don't use comments to explain bad code. Comments should not be used to explain bad or poorly written code. Instead, the code should be refactored and improved to make it more readable and understandable. Here's an example of code that's hard to read and understand, along with a comment that attempts to explain it. Here's an example of how we could rewrite the code to make it clearer. Use comments to explain why, not what. Comments should not simply repeat what the code is doing, but rather explain why it is doing it. This can help other developers understand the reasoning behind certain decisions and make it easier to modify or update the code in the future. Here's an example of a good why comment. As you can see, this comment explains why using a set timeout before executing the function to ensure that the user has enough time to see the loading indicator. Use comments to document API endpoints and functions. When working on a project that involves APIs, it's important to document the endpoints and functions that are available. This can make it easier for other developers to understand how to interact with the API and can help prevent errors. Here's an example. The capitalize function is documented using JSDoc comments. JSDoc is a popular documentation system for JavaScript. It allows developers to write documentation comments in their code using a special syntax, which can then be processed to generate documentation in various formats. JSDoc supports a range of tags that can be used to document functions, variables, classes, and other parts of a JavaScript program. These tags include param, returns, throws, example, and many more. In this example, the @param tag is used to describe each parameter, including its name, type, and a brief description. The @returns tag is used to describe the return value, including its type and a brief description. With these comments, modern IDEs will help you understand the function by just hovering over it. In conclusion, comments are an important tool for explaining code and making it easier to understand. However, writing good comments requires thought and effort, and there are several key principles to keep in mind. Comments should be clear, concise. Avoid writing comments that simply repeat what the code is doing. Use comments to provide explanations of complex logic and reasoning for the code. Keep your comments up to date as your code changes over time. And remember, clean, well-organized code is often more readable and understandable than code that relies heavily on comments. That's it for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. See you soon.